This is an impromptu age lust. So usually I pick a topic and do a ton of research on it, or maybe not a ton. I mean, depends on whatever. Anyway, the point is that this is my story around perimenopause. And I think it's a good idea to share my story because some of you may be experiencing some of the odd symptoms of perimenopause that I've gone through. And it's a little bit different than your hot flashes and your night sweats. So I'm going to take you through my story and a little bit about me. So who the fuck am I? I am Jessica, and my full name's Jessica Donsky, and I am a family nurse practitioner. I'm board certified. I also am a certified menopause provider through the North American Menopause Society. And way before I became a nurse, I was a doula and I worked in film and I taught yoga for a really long time. And I have a long yoga family lineage. Anyway, that's a little bit about me. The first time I ever had a hot flash was, I don't even know if it's a hot flash. I remember having given birth to my first child at the age of 32 and waking up and just being covered in sweat, like head to toe covered in sweat. And that, of course, was not necessarily a hot flash, but it definitely showed the dramatic change of my hormones. It happened again when I had my other kid at 36. And then at 38, I started to have these symptoms where I would be eating a sandwich and I would get super dizzy. So that didn't really make sense to me because I was already a nurse at that point. It didn't make sense to me because I was sitting there and, it wasn't like I had low blood glucose. I mean, maybe I did, but I was in the process of eating. The process of eating was making me dizzy, not nauseous, not sick, but dizzy. Anyway, I asked one of the what do you call those? See, brain fog. There you go. He was an attending and he was like, what do you call that in the hospital? Doctor that's there. And they're kind of the general. I don't know. It's going to come to me. His name was Aziz. His name is probably Aziz. I'm guessing he's still around. And I really got a kick out of this person. So anyway, I said, Aziz, I get dizzy when I'm eating a sandwich. And he said, well, maybe you're going through menopause. And I looked at him and I said, fuck you. Get the fuck away from me. I probably was starting early perimenopause at that time. So real quick, what's the difference? I thought perimenopause was just perimenopause. No, my friend. There are two types of perimenopause. Not two types, but two stages of perimenopause. Perimenopause is that period that can last up to 10 years for some people, where you're still having a period and you get to your 1+1. What's 1+1? It's 365 days, otherwise known as 1 year, plus 1 day, where you have no bleeding at all. That's 1+1. So that time before where the hormones are fluctuating and changing is perimenopause. And there's early and late. So I was in early perimenopause. So what is that? Early perimenopause is where you have dips and spikes of hormones and you are still getting a period, but maybe it's off by a couple days. No more than 7 days off, or like around 7 days off, but it's just off. Could be heavier. You could start having clotting, and I'm going to tell you about that. But that's early perimenopause. So I probably was in early perimenopause where my hormones were starting to fluctuate a lot. And I'm not really going to edit this, so deal with me saying things like a lot and shit. Anyway, let me get back to it. So it was probably going off by a day or two, and I was still having periods, and they were super, super heavy, and they were getting heavier. Fast forward about a year, huge transition in my life at that time. And I go away, and I talk about this trip in the sleep episode, and I go away, and I like go to sleep, and I wake up, and there's blood like all over the bed. I had taken a nap, like just covered, like crime scene covered blood. That reminded me of when I was 16, and the same thing happened. I went to this, like my friend's father had a summer house. And so we went to this very bougie summer house, and they had all like crisp white linens on their sheets and shit. And I have, out of nowhere, I started gushing blood everywhere, ruined their crisp white sheets. And I was literally sitting on the bed. I wasn't sleeping. The beauty of perimenopause and being a teenager, right? Sitting on the bed and just covered. And as soon as that gush came, it went away because I put in a super tampon. And then, you know how tampons suck up all of the fluid around, like the bleeding was done, the fluid was gone. And I was like trying to like yank that fucking tampon out. But anyway, that was a very traumatic situation at 16. Fast forward, how many years? 23 years at 39, gushing blood everywhere. This was early perimenopause for me. Now, that the bleeding continued, super heavy periods, fluctuations, but at 43, I had another kid. Now, perimenopause, remember, you're like, things are crazy. Things are all over the place in this perimenopause situation. And before the age of 45, we don't say like, go ahead and get your labs done. In the North American Menopause Society, I think Australia and the UK, none of these societies say like before 45, go get your levels checked. Why? Because they're all over the place. One day, it's going to look like you're fertile myrtle. The next day, it looks like you are old Mother Hubbard. Anyway, but 42, 41, something like that. I was still having these crazy periods at 43, probably before 43, right? Because I turned 43. Anyway, whatever. Okay, doesn't matter. It's complicated math for me. But definitely at 43, I dropped 2 eggs. I released 2 follicles. Both follicles were full of eggs. And I got pregnant. I got pregnant with twins. Lost one of the one of them was not viable. And I have a fabulous little person in my life. So there I was, fluctuating hormones. I started to already have the hot flashes at that point at 43. Was having night sweats. Was having, slight sleep disturbances, especially if I was sweating at night. And I started to investigate not hormones really, but like herbal support. So I had an old book called, I might have it. Is it? Oh, let me take painful sex. Okay, anyway. Okay, that was too much time for you to watch me look back there. But I had like some book about like taking charge of some like holistic hormonal book. Not Laura Briden, none of the ones that are out right now. And I learned about Vitex. This is, okay, disclaimer, Nothing I say is medical advice for you. This is my story. Talk to your provider. That goes for anything that I ever talk about on this podcast. Anyway, so I started to take something called Vitex. Vitex is chaste berry, comes in an herbal supplement, and I was taking that because that mimics progesterone. So the concept was that if I was starting to boost my body's ability to support progesterone, support my hormones, I'll be sleeping better, I'll be in a better mood, my periods might improve, less cramping, that sort of thing. So I started to play with herbal supplements and herbal remedies. Is that why I got pregnant? Is that why I dropped 2 eggs? I don't know. Maybe. I was also taking myoisonatol. I'm doing this from memory, by the way, folks, okay? For Mother's Day. I was taking a whole bunch of different supplements because it wasn't like, oops. This was a thought out situation. Like, maybe we should try and like hump and have a baby. So there you go. That was at 43. Fast forward, I have the kid. The sweating starts again at night. I had already gone through that 2 times before with my other births. And I kind of just move on with life. I get my master's. I work full time. And I start to notice that anxiety is like at a much higher level. I also notice, this is also at the time that, around this time that I got diagnosed with ADHD. So there's a huge thing that happens in perimenopause that we not only start to lose words and have brain fog, but we start to, especially if you have ADHD, it seems worse than it was. For me, it's like speeding through things, falling down stairs, just because it's not because I would lose my strength or my balance. It's because I was thinking about something or talking about one thing while holding a big basket, not holding onto a rail, wearing socks on wooden stairs, that kind of thing, or running into clinical on a Saturday, to do the night shift, and it's the winter time and I'm whatever, and straight down the stairs, that kind of thing. Anyway, so my kind of speediness got more speedy. My anxiety got a lot worse, and my blood pressure started to go up now, and some palpitations at night. So I thought, well, I'm in grad school. I have 3 children. I go to clinical every Saturday on top of my 5-day job. And I was working on Private Parts of Wellness, which is my website, which has a blog. That's the blog. So I thought it was all of those things, never thinking that it was my hormones at all, until, again, about 2018, and actually before that, probably like 2017, my dear friend, who's an amazing mental health counselor, my amazing friend Kristen Keefe, said, listen, let's do a thing on menopause, and let's do a workshop, and I'll do a talking part, like a community conversation, and you can do movement, because remember I told you I was a yoga teacher way before, and you can also teach people about menopause. And again, first thing out of my mouth was, fuck you, I don't want to know about it. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to read about it. I just want to ignore this. But I love her, and she's super smart, like most of my friends are. I don't have any dummy friends. All of my friends are beautiful, inside and out, and beyond, above and beyond in intelligence, because to make up for my lack of smarts, you know what I mean? Like I like to surround myself with people who know more shit than me. Anyway, shout out to my friends. So finally, I did it, and I started to research perimenopause, menopause, and I learned that progesterone is the first thing that decreases in our body when we're going through this perimenopausal, menopausal journey. And then I learned about estrogen, and I learned about the side effects and the palpitations and the anxiety and the insomnia and the sweating and the ear ringing, the tinnitus, the joint pain. I was having tremendous joint pain. The rage, the sadness, the bleeding, the blood clots. These are all the things I started to learn about. So we created in 2018 something called Goodnight Moon. And it was a series where people came and we did movement, and then I did conversation, science around what's going on with our bodies. There was a theme. One was on sex, one was on anger, one was on like juiciness, like lubing or the joints. Did we do 3 or 6? I don't even remember how many we did. I have to look. There's actually a playlist on Spotify if you are interested. I'll link to it. Anyway, and then we would meet after the workshop. We would go move into another room. It was at this place called Bread and Yoga. It doesn't exist anymore. And we'd move into this other room, which is a communal kitchen, and everyone would eat and have snacks, and they would drink wine, and I don't drink, but that's what we would do. It was pretty amazing. And I learned, you know what, I'm going through perimenopause. At that point, I was moving into later perimenopause. Now, that's probably a lie. I was on the cusp of early perimenopause and inching my way toward late perimenopause, which is where I'm at right now. So what's later perimenopause? I already told you that early perimenopause is fluctuation of hormones. And in addition, you've got a 7-day kind of possible variation, not every month, but a 7-day variation on your period, 2 days, 3 days, around there. Late perimenopause lasts from approximately 1 to 3 years. And it's where you go 60 days or more without a period, right? So there are months where I get my period every month. And then there are months where I skip 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, right? 4 months. And there are even those folks who skip all the way 11 months. And there that bitch comes. There you are, bleeding again. There are folks who go almost to the day, 362. And then the period starts up again. And then what happens is you need to start counting over again. So, in between, right at that point too, around 2018, I started to also play with progesterone cream that I purchased at a Whole Foods or something. I don't even know if you can still get that over the counter. I'm sure you can. I'll tell you that North American Menopause Society does not support it. Creams don't work. What do you want to do with the progesterone cream? Well, I was using it for sleep and relaxation. The idea around taking additional progesterone is to thin the uterine lining, right? To thin that uterine lining to stop the clotting. And the progesterone cream, the natural cream and the Vitex, they were not cutting it. They were not hitting it. It was not happening. But I was still doing the herbal remedies at that point. And I also had from Kind Lab, which is out of Marblehead. And I grew up with the founder, Angela. And so she had this bliss oil that had some THC in it and CBD. And I would use that as well. So I'd put that oil, which is like a lube. I'd put that oil on my vulva, put the cream, the progesterone cream, on my arm or in my thigh or whatever I did. And I would just like slide into bed, and it would be like a hot bath. So that's what I was doing up until that point. I was taking the Vitex as well. I was taking like a woman's perimenopausal formula. I tried maca. I was just using all of the supplements. It wasn't until the pandemic that I was like, and enough is enough. During the pandemic, I really started to identify what were hot flashes for me. I was working for a men's health company, and I was surrounded by men. A lot of them were fabulous. A lot of them were fine. At times, they would mansplain to me. And when I would be mansplained, I could feel a tingling. So I've seen people have hot flashes where like buckets are just pouring, right? But for me, that's not what was happening. It would start probably at my shoulders, and I would feel a tingling that would creep up into my skull. And I don't know if I would turn colors. I don't know if things would change as far as if it was evident. But this tingling would like start creeping up my skin, and it was that uncomfortable tingling along with very kind of, let me just say, like borderline violent thoughts, right? Like, I want to kick this man in his dick. You dumb fuck, like all of those kind of things, like shut up, that kind of thing. And so I thought, wow, there's a pandemic going around and I need to keep my job. So let me start to investigate something a little more serious, meaning hormones. For me, choosing hormones was not just about the hot. So that's the reason that somebody would go on estrogen patch, is for hot flashes, night sweats. I also read a lot of the literature, and I was going through the NAMs, their videos, their pearls, which are like, their case studies. I was looking at Louise Newsom's work. I was looking at Barbara Taylor's work. I was trying to gather all 14 Fish, which is a organization that does continuing education for medical professionals out of the UK. I was just looking at everything I could. I was looking at research studies, reading books, like taking in all the information I possibly could. And there was pretty strong evidence that said that if you do decide to start hormones, starting them earlier is better than waiting. I also thought a lot about cardiac health. My father died of very severe heart disease. His mother died. I never met her. My dad was a teenager when she died, but apparently, like, the story has it, she was a nurse and like her heart fucking exploded like at work. So heart disease was a pretty big concern for me. I have some health anxiety, as so many medical professionals do. And I thought long and hard about risks and my personal family background and how I could take the pressure off. And I decided at that point to give hormones a try. So I use an estradiol patch, and I use permetrium, which is micronized progesterone. Both things that are body identical. Now, back in the day when my mom was going through it, she was really into bio-identical, and things were a little bit different because at the time that right before the WHI, which was that big study that said hormones are a disaster, everyone's going to die, it's a total nightmare, don't use them. lots of women were taking hormones, and my mother, who was always like on the kind of crunchy granola side of things health wise, was getting bio-identical from like one of those big compounding pharmacies. So I'd always been around like the idea of using hormones as supplementation. North American Menopause Society says don't go for the compounded pharmacies. I'm of two minds of it, but you don't need to, because the FDA kind of standard, straight, conventional hormones for menopause are body identical, meaning that they are formulated to replicate what's happening in your body, like same kind of compounds. And also they are plant-based. So I went ahead and did that, and it was amazing for me. All of a sudden, my children were not as annoying. My husband didn't smell bad. I didn't hate everyone. I actually went to sleep at night. I stopped having night sweats. I stopped having hot flashes. Lubrication got better in the vagina, the vaginal area. And the brain fog lifted, and I know that there was some sadness that I was going through, and it really very much improved. Fast forward, I've been on hormones now for 2 years. Is it 2 years? Maybe moving, I guess, like close to 3 years now. And the idea is not to eliminate all symptoms. For me, it's all about taking the pressure off. So what do I do today? I am late perimenopause, which means that, God willing, I will stop bleeding in the next year or so, and I will be done, and I will hit my 1 in 1 year, 1 day. But for now, it's a crapshoot. I pretty much know that if I start my progesterone, I do a cycle. I don't do it every day. I do it for the 15th for 12 days. So the 15th of every month, I take it for 12 days. Sometimes I swallow it. Sometimes that makes me too groggy. A lot of times I just place it into my vagina because it goes right to the source. That's with the progesterone. I put my patch on. I love my patch. It's awesome. It's so good. Does it fix everything? Do I feel like I was 25 again? I do not. And I hated my 20s anyway, so fuck that shit. I have experienced recently some more sadness, which I went to a menopause provider and discussed with them as far as like, I intuitively didn't feel like increasing my estrogen was the right move. And she agreed with that. So this is me, not you. This is me. I've chosen to supplement in different ways. And yeah, I mean, I talk about orgasm in other recordings. I talk about menopause being 1 day. Check out some of the other stuff that's going on. My breasts are denser. I talk about that. But that's just that's kind of how I got to do this work around menopause. I'll probably do another kind of getting to know you on why I talk about sex and sexuality and how that became such a huge part of my practice, my mission. But yeah, I think that you have to know that there's not, well, you do know this, right? There's not a one size fits all answer, and what is right for me might not be right for you, or it might just be exactly what you want to, investigate. Since starting the medicine, since learning more and more and constantly evolving my education and understanding more about estrogen, learning more about progesterone, learning more about the mind, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, learning more about our amazing bodies. You know, who knows? Maybe things will change, and I hope to keep bringing this information to you. I don't know what my point was. I think I just had like a brain fog. Anyway, that's my story. I'm still in perimenopause. One day I'll be in postmenopause, and I will continue on that postmenopausal journey. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait because, you know, I look forward to wearing white pants whenever I want. I have a pair of Stella McCartney. Is that how you saw it? I was never a Beatles fan, so I don't really, you know. But you know, the daughter of that Beatle guy, right? She's a designer. I have silk panties that are from her company. And I look forward to this body being only for this being. That is what I look forward to in being postmenopausal. This body being only for this being. I'll no longer have to give blood every month. I no longer have to give milk. I will no longer have to be a home for any other spirit or soul except my own. I love that. I love that. Anyway, I hope this was interesting. And I have some exciting stuff planned for future episodes. Thank you for listening. If you're looking, this is my office. It's actually not my office. It's actually my husband's, but I've taken it over. And yeah, thanks for listening. Like, follow, subscribe, all those things. Share it with your friends. Spread the word. Send me messages. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks again.